Hello Year 9, welcome to this lesson looking again at how had the Allied powers defeated the Axis powers by 1945. Today's question is this: why was D-Day a success? So please write that in your book or in the Word document and underline it as your main heading. We've got two key words this lesson. One is artillery, and that is what you can see here, this big gun inside the concrete structure, and you can see the shells that would come out the end of that. There's lots of different size shells. This one obviously would fire one maybe about the length of the man's upper arm, so maybe perhaps about this size. And the pillbox is what that gun is in, so a concrete building where the soldiers were protected and they could still attack troops coming. So write down those keywords with their definitions. Okay, quick recap, pause the video, and here what you need to do is copy out the sentence, choosing the correct word each time. This recaps our whole theme, so pause the video and answer those questions, copy out those sentences. Okay, so we're going to look at the build-up to D-Day a bit first, and the first thing we're going to look at is a conference that happened in Tehran, and you can see the three leaders who were there. So the Soviet Union and America, we know, had joined the war against Germany, and Roosevelt, Stalin and Churchill had a meeting together, the leaders of those three countries, with Britain as well. They agreed that the USA and Britain would attack the Germans in West Europe, and they had to plan that attack so that they could take control back and defeat the Nazis. What you can see on this map here is what's called the Atlantic Wall, and the Nazis knew that they'd taken over, all the countries in blue were taken over by the Nazis, but they knew that at some time the Allies would try and attack them from Britain. So they put put lots of defences here. And as it says there, if the invasion was going to be successful, they had to not only break through the wall, stop the Germans pushing them back, and then get on into Germany to force them to surrender. So what you can see here is it zooms in, and we're now looking at an area in northern France, and they chose Normandy because it was close enough to England for Allied aircraft to fly, and it had open beaches that weren't so well defended as the ones closer up near Dover that were closer to Britain. And it was opposite the main ports of southern England, so you can see those ships there coming together, and then they could get down to the French coast. So just to check what we've done on the last couple of slides, you might want to scroll back through the video if you don't remember. Answer these 4 questions. So pause the video and answer these 4 questions. Okay, so there were 5 beaches that came under attack. They were going to be stormed in the very early morning on June the 6th, 1944. And that night beforehand, they were going to drop soldiers on parachutes out of aeroplanes into behind that line where the ships were going to come to try to protect them after they landed. So it's come from the sea, the land and the air, and you can see there we've got American, British and Canadian divisions landing. There is a TV film called Band of Brothers, but it's 15 certificates, so if you do want to watch it, make sure you get permission from your parents or carers. So let's see what happened then. The first thing is that the ships leave Britain during the night so that they couldn't be spotted from the air. And then first thing in the morning, those aeroplanes come and drop the soldiers behind the lines to try and start the attack there. Between 6:30 in the morning and 8 o'clock in the morning, they land at the beaches. And by lunchtime, they had taken control of all 5 beaches. But 4,000 Allied soldiers were killed in the original attack, but it did succeed, and the German forces were killed, captured, or had to move back away from the beaches. So the first part of D-Day was a success. This is a side cutaway of what it would have been like to land at the beaches. So you can see where the number 1 and 2 are. That's the landing crafts coming in to bring the soldiers onto the beaches. So based on this picture, so put a subheading challenges at the landing sites. Based on this picture, make a list of as many things, as many dangers and challenges that you think the soldiers would face. Pause the video while you do that. Okay, the German defences then, let's have a look at what was there. We've seen already the artillery, and they were up at the top on the solid ground at the top of the hill behind the beach. There were also the pillboxes, concrete bunkers where the German soldiers were protected. And they also had these kind of structures on the beach called hedgehogs because they're really spiky, and it meant that the boats couldn't land. They'd also put mines in the sand. You can see in the picture there are some explosions. So these are the kind of dangers that the Allied troops faced when they landed. This picture shows all the different types of ways that the invasion happened. So you can see all the different ships and vehicles and soldiers. So this is just for information really to see how big this invasion force was. Okay, new subheading, the eve of the invasion. So let's have a look at this letter. It was written to the American troops by their General Eisenhower, who later becomes President of America, but that's another story. Here he is writing to the troops. So I'm going to read this so that you can make sure that you can understand it. Soldiers, sailors and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark on the great crusade towards which we've striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well trained, well equipped and battle hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940 to 41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man to man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. We have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty and skill in battle. We'll accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessings of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. So have a go at the two questions. Make a list of how you think the soldiers would have felt and then include a quote for each one to back up why they might have felt like that. Pause the video while you do that. Okay, we're about to watch a video separate to this one, so you'll need to open it in another window in the internet and use that to fill in a table like this. So draw this table in your book or or on your Word document, and make sure you leave a bit of space, leave a few lines, maybe 5 or 6 lines for each of these, so that you can add the detail from the video. So pause the video, draw the table, and then you can follow the link on the next slide. So follow the link on the next slide. If you've got any space left in your table, then you could use source A or source B to help you complete in a bit more detail. Or if the video didn't work, then use these sources to help you. Okay, a bit more information. Here's some examples of new technology that meant that D-Day succeeded. So a DD tank here could travel through water as well as on land. That big sort of skirt thing wrapped around it and kept the mechanism dry, so it could start in the water and then go up onto the beach. So that was one of the tanks that they used. They also used a tank like this, and this has got a big drum in it that's got a metal that rolls around like this, and these metal hooks come down into the ground, into the sand, and bring up any mines and make them explode. So the people inside are safe, and then there's no mines left, and the soldiers can come onto the beach. And then lastly, this tank laid down material as it went in front of it that meant that the sand could take the weight. If you've ever been on a really soft beach where the sand is really soft, you know that it's really hard to walk on, you can't go very far or very fast, and something that's heavy would just sink into it and stop. So these laid matting out over the beach so that the heavier vehicles could come behind and help them continue that invasion, not just to take the beach but to keep going into France and then into Germany. This man here is a man called Stanley Hollins, and he was rewarded for his bravery. He's the only person who got a Victoria Cross and here he is, a statue showing him. So I'm not going to tell you his story, but you can look him up. So his name is Stanley Hollins, so look him up and you will find out about him. The fact that only one soldier got a Victoria Cross doesn't mean that everybody else wasn't brave, but shows that if they'd awarded it for everybody who was brave, they would have just had to do so many, so they just gave it to this one man. So maybe look him up, Stanley Hollins is his name, and see what you can find out about him. Okay, so our main writing task this lesson is to explain 2 reasons why the Allied landings in Normandy were a success. And there's a couple of suggestions there. We're going to do 2 peel paragraphs. And there you can see, so over 156,000 British, American, Canadian troops took part, and they got through that German barrier that we saw on the map, and it meant that they could get right the way in the next few months, get right the way to Germany and defeat the Nazis. So 2 peel paragraphs, 1 for each reason. Remember, point, evidence, explain, link. And what we're trying to do is explain why they succeeded in taking those beaches. Why was it a success? So you might want to talk about those tanks that we just looked at. I want to talk about the training and preparation that the soldiers did, or the planning that they did, the choice of the beach in Normandy that meant that they succeeded. So if you want to look on the next slide, you can keep going with the video, or if you want to have a go on your own, then pause the video here. Here is an example response, so you can see the point in green, evidence in orange, red, lots of explanation, and then the link sentence. To check your learning this week, there's an online quiz. Follow the notes, follow the link in the notes, or it's also on Teams if you're accessing this lesson through there. Well done, Year 9. Hopefully you're enjoying this, and we will get to the end of the Second World War and the victory of the Allies by the end of this term. Okay, well done.